consultant team has done an amazing work to fulfill all the requirements that we have to get to this point. And I'm gonna just pass it to Noé so he can walk you through all the work there that has been done and all the agenda that we're going to talk about today. Noé, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Beatriz. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good wet afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Noé Noyola. I'll be your facilitator today. Mainly, I'm just here to, make sure that we get out on time. We're scheduled to do about 2 hours, so about 8 o'clock. Hopefully, everybody will be on their way home or, on their way to hang out and just relax in this cozy evening. Before we do that, I want to just make sure that anybody ask if anybody necesita introducción, necesita traducciones. Does anybody need translation? Si alguien necesita traducción al español, por favor, alce la mano y le podemos integrar a otro canal. Just asking to see if anybody needs translation to Spanish. Any members of the public? ¿Alguien requiere traducción al español? No? Not seeing any, then I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and introduce here Michelle Montoya, who will take roll call, please. Michelle?
Thank you so much. When I call your name, if you could just confirm that you are here, please. Ali Soto. Okay. Andreas Vigil. Annette Arnold.
Here.
Thank you. DeLachey Benson. Erica Mikesh.
Present.
Thank you. Yvette Miner.
Here.
Jen Close.
Here.
Lee Pierce.
He's noting his hand.
I see his hand up. Perfect.
I had
Lee.
to unmute.
That's all right.
Perfect. Thank you. Lisa Jocelyn.
Here.
Melanie Ehlers. Okay. Michael Cook. Michael Cook. I do see he is.
I am here. Sorry, I was double muted.
There he is.
Perfect. Thank you. Omar Lopez.
Here.
Patricia Thompson.
Here.
Rajuda Bomik. Ryan Tracy.
Here.
Stephanie Manieri. Steven Spillman.
Here.
Kevin Anderson.
Here, and happy birthday, Beatriz.
Michelle, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Spelovita. Okay, James Pedgrift.
Here.
Joel Batterman.
Here.
Anna Stevens.
Here.
And Barber.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, let the record reflect that all committee members are present with the exception of Ali Soto, Andreas Vigil, DeLachey Benson, Melanie Ehlers, Regina Bomik, Michelle Spaluvita, and we have 2 vacancies.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So just to confirm, we do have a quorum. Okay.
That is correct. We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for participating tonight. We really appreciate your time. I want to go ahead and get us started on a few things now that the, formalities, just another very minor formality. I just want to read this, statement here from the city of Santa Rosa, just to again remind you that the meeting is being recorded. The city of Santa Rosa is committed to creating a safe and inclusive environment free from disruption. We will not tolerate any hateful speech or actions and are well staffed to monitor that everyone is participating respectfully or they will be removed. If necessary, we will also immediately end the meeting. If the meeting is ended, we will plan on recording another presentation without participants that will be posted on the project website. Okay, let's see. Now let's go ahead and go into public comments. Are there any public comments here that are not related to the agenda, to any agenda items? This is for, I see a raised hand. Go ahead, Michael.
Give me just one moment. Could you stop the share really quick so that I can share the timer?
Sure. Okay, go ahead, Michael. Any public comments on any issues not related to what is posted on the agenda?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was just told that if I wanted to really get my public comments out there, that I would make an appearance tonight virtually. And I was just, there was two things that I wanted to bring up that I think you people have gotten in the past. The first one I wanted to talk about was Highway 12 not having some sort of bypass through the Southeast Greenway. Does any of that ring a bell to any of you?
Michael, these are public comments, so you have 3 minutes. You have 2 minutes and 25 seconds here.
Yes, that's what I would like to comment on. So, does any of you remember those comments that I emailed before? Hello?
Yeah, Michael. So at this moment, we're not engaging in discussion. This is really just your 3 minutes to comment on whatever you would like.
Okay, I just would like to bring up that I think it might be a good idea for there to still maybe not to still, because I think there's a lot of congestion in that area of where Highway 12 goes through, and that it might be a good idea that maybe I was going to suggest that maybe not a freeway, maybe go through the Southeast Freeway, but what about just an expressway, just like expressway with signalized intersections that would connect out to the Oakmont area, just, you know, like as a surface street where you can go at a really high speed and there's signalized intersections instead of interchanges. So that was one comment I wanted to get out. The next comment, the last one I have, is that I would another thing that I would like is to encourage more drive-through facilities to come to the city because of the pandemic going on right now. I think it's really important so that people have the option of staying safely in their cars and not having to go inside, that we encourage more drive-through facilities such as quick serve restaurants, pharmacies, ATMs, just to, you know, that way people can have more options for remaining safely in their car by not discouraging new drive-through establishments within Santa Rosa city limits. So that was just another thing that I wanted to get to tonight. So those were my only two comments. That was it. When can I get a response to these?
Michael, at this moment, you have 1 minute if you want to finish off.
I just said, when can I get a response to these two comments I just made?
We don't have an answer to you at this point.
Okay, can I please be given one later before I go? Like before I go, can I, was there a way I can get a response later on?
Sure. What we'll do is we will connect you with, if you could just, I think we have your email address here, correct?
Yes, and if those two comments about what if Highway 12 went through that section of Sarah's instead as an expressway instead of as a freeway, like maybe that might face less opposition, because if it's just an expressway, there's less impacts compared to if there was a freeway. And also this thing about permitting more and encouraging more new drive-through establishments within Sarah's city limits. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Any other public comments here related to anything that is not on the agenda? Please go ahead and raise your hands.
I'm not seeing any other hands at this time. I did want to note that member Ali Soto has joined us as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. All right, I'll come back to sharing my screen here. So not seeing any other further public comments. Michelle, you're agreeing to this? There's no other further public comments that you're seeing?
Correct.
Okay, so we can jump right into that. All right, so just getting into the welcome and agenda review, what we're going to talk about today, as you see it here, we've gone through some public comments. We're going to do just a quick review of the agenda. You're going to receive some project updates from staff member Amy Lyle. And then also we're going to get into the meat of the discussion here, which is going to be you're going to have a brief presentation on equity priority communities. We'd like your feedback on that. Also, you're going to have an alternatives workbook presentation and brief discussion. What we'd like to do is just from this point, let you know that this is just your initial response. There's going to be further time for being able to submit your comments. So don't feel that we all have to really, work this out entirely today. It's just your initial response. Finally, the community engagement event set. We do want to get your input on how that works as liaisons to the community. Another round of public comments. And then finally, next steps and close. All right. So that is our agenda. Now, as you can see here, the project team is including city staff and the consultant team. But to talk about the city staff, I'd like to bring on Andy Gustafson, who will give you, well, a bit of an update, right, Andy?
Yes, and thank you, Noe, very much for your introductions here. So I have an announcement that's both exciting and sad. I am retiring, and it's exciting for me. And I think our team will find it exciting as well, because now when I step away, I will be succeeded by Amy Nicholson as project manager when she is able to clear her plate a bit. We imagine sometime in January, February, but she's a very capable, longstanding colleague in the advanced planning team. And I know that Amy Lyle and Beatriz Guerrero will really welcome her into the team. So I've got to tell this group, thank you very much for engaging in this project in the early days and hanging with us. I think what is now in front of you is the most exciting part. And I will be watching from afar. Maybe I'll be commenting in public comments going forward. So thank you again for everything you're doing for this project, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Let's see. Great.
And I'll turn this now over to either Amy Lyle or Beatriz.
Well, let's see. In terms of just process here, we have Steve Spillman here that is probably wanting to congratulate you. So I think we should admit that. But just let me check, Steve, for just a quick second. Michelle, is there any concern with having committee members jump in here?
I think it's okay.
All right. Okay. Go ahead, Steve, please.
Oh, yes, certainly. Congratulations, Andy. But, quite a disappointment for the rest of us. And we're hoping that whatever's next in your life will be even greater than what you've contributed to the city of Santa Rosa. And hopefully you will be able to advise us, maybe on a personal level, but maybe on a staff level, because your expertise and your experience is just overwhelming, and to see it just vanish, it would be quite disappointing. So I'm sure I'm hoping you'll stay engaged, and at a minimum, be a personal advisor to us who are going to be relying on you.
Well, thank you. And I got to follow up on that to say, I feel great about the decision at this time, simply because of the capacity and ability of my colleagues here at the city. I mean, as many of you probably experienced, when you step away from a job and a favorite project, you always wonder, can it carry forward? And I, with the greatest confidence, know that they'll be able to do so. So I have no problems, and certainly I'll stay engaged. Thank you.
Just don't slip away.
Well,
You're too engaged with everything that's so important to the city to just slip away. So I'm sure you won't.
thank you so much for that, Steve. Congratulations, Andy, on behalf of everyone. I think everybody's very excited for you, not to see you leave, but for you. And all of us, I'm sure, are a little bit jealous. So with that, I want to just go ahead and do a quick brief introduction of the consultant team, or reintroduction to many of you. It includes MIG, the Placeworks team, and Gervais and Associates. Everybody from the team, if you can please just raise your hand and say hello, just so everybody knows that you're here. Thank you so much. All right, great. So with those introductions now in order, what I want to do is move us along here to the role and commitment. I want to bring on our formidable Beatriz Guerrero as your liaison, to just give you a bit of encouragement, right, Beatriz?
That's correct, Noé. Muchas gracias. Thanks for sharing the space. I just wanted to remind you that the Community Advisory Committee role and commitment that we have had for this group is to be part of the community engagement strategy. You're our liaisons, and we really rely on you to help us figure out if what we're doing is all right, and if you want us to change something, if you want us to improve, and be our connections with the community. So we really thank you for the time that you're investing in this, but we also welcome you to ask questions, to please provide us your feedback, and also to continue engaged, because most of you and all the people who are new to this new CAC are doing really great work, and we really want to encourage you to continue. We know we've been quiet, but it's because we were doing a lot of work, and you are about to see it. So very happy to have you here. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Noé. Amy Lyle is going to help us with the project updates, but just keep in mind that we're really excited to have you here, and we're going to start this journey that was a little bit stopped because of all the work that was being done behind the scenes, but we're ready to go. Amy, this is your space.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. And also just want to say happy birthday to Beatrice. She's joining us on her birthday tonight, so we really appreciate that. We can go to the next slide, please. So my part of the presentation tonight is just to catch you up on where we've been and where we are at this moment. We do have some new CAC members tonight, so we want to welcome you as well, and just kind of recap what's been happening. So this is our project schedule, and we won't get into detail on this, but just to say that the general plan process and the update process is long. So we appreciate you all staying with us. The update that we're doing is of our general plan, which is considered the constitution for development in a city. Every jurisdiction in California has to have one. And ours is ripe for an update. There's been a lot going on, and we're looking forward to the next 30 years to see what we're going to be doing here in Santa Rosa based on the community's direction. So along with our general plan update, this also includes an update to our housing element, an update to our climate action plan. We also will be looking at our safety element and all things along with that. And so this is comprehensive, so it touches about every aspect of our community. And I also just wanted to note that we're right in the midst, thank you very much, of the alternative section. So previously, when we kicked off the project, we started with a vision. So that was done over the summer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what we heard as part of that visioning process. But our alternatives process will be looking at land use and circulation alternatives, and we'll be going from this month through January and February as well. So all of these different sets of events and deliverables that we're working on start with the community. So we present it to you, the Community Advisory Committee, our Technical Advisory Committee, and then we do a lot of work with the community. And then we go back to our city boards and commissions, Planning Commission, and City Council to really confirm direction and let them know what the community said, so we can move to that next step. So stay along with us for the rest of it, because 2022 is going to be a very fast-paced year in regards to the general plan. All right, next slide, please. So we did just wanted to recap what happened last summer with our visioning event set. It was a very big picture question that we asked the community and your group, but really, what do we want to see for Santa Rosa? What is our vision for how we want Santa Rosa to be in 30 years? So we did do a variety of different things. We are really trying to touch each member of our community, all residents. And so we did 10 community workshops, challenged by the pandemic, of course, so they were all remote, but we did one in each of our council districts. And then we also did bilingual and then Spanish speaking only workshops. And we also went to roughly 25 community group meetings. So thank you for all those who connected us with your community groups in your communities. And we also had a lot of individual conversations. We had an online survey, and we also did some in-person work as well with that survey. But all of that is on our website, all of the results, notes, recordings from those workshops. So if you want to catch up and see what people said, that's one place to do it. But this visual does encompass what we heard in one concise picture and was presented to the City Council and confirmed by them. And next slide, please. And then the other part of that is that we created a vision statement. So this vision statement, along with those words in the other slide, will be living along with us through the rest of the process and will help guide our policy work. So the vision statement that was defined is that Santa Rosa is a diverse, equitable, and sustainable community built on civic engagement that empowers everyone to provide and support equal and affordable opportunities to obtain good housing, education, and jobs, to enjoy vibrant cultural events and arts, and to live healthy lives in resilient neighborhoods that adapt to social and environmental change. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to talk about some of the other work that we're doing that Beatrice has really been focused on, and that's our equity and priority work plan. So with that, Beatrice, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Because of the time that we have, and because we invested a little bit of time in our previous conversations and we were a little bit late, we want you to be out of here at 8 p.m. So I'm going to focus on the first 4 slides, which are the main conversation that we want to have with you. And I will leave the rest of the conversation for a different time, and also leaving you all the details because this is public information. You can get back to the presentation and you will be able to go back to our website. What we want right now is to have your feedback on Santa Rosa's equity priority communities. And when we are, when I don't know, for some of the people who haven't met me before, I was hired by the city of Santa Rosa as an equity and public health planner. So part of my role was to define how we were going to do outreach in a more equitable way, and thinking specifically about the populations that haven't been taken into account in planning in the past. So for this specific task, and out of the different definitions from the state of California, we got 10 different groups that are actually Santa Rosa's equity priority communities based on our research. And what we want to hear from you later is, what are you thinking about this presentation and these definitions? And if you're thinking that there's someone else who we're missing with the definition of equity priority communities. We have gone to City Council as a study session to present this document, but it's not a final definition. We're still open to get your feedback and to talk more about this conversation. So just for purposes of the general plan update and for our community outreach work plan, we wanted to tell you that Santa Rosa's equity priority communities or populations would be low-income individuals and families, racial and ethnic groups experiencing disparate health outcomes, seniors, children, youth, and young adults, individuals with disabilities. Number 5, immigrants and refugees. Number 6, outdoor workers and farm workers. Number 7, individuals who are limited English proficient. Number 8, unhoused people. Number 9, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning communities, LGBTQ+. And number 10, individuals who are incarcerated and those who have been incarcerated. In the next slides, in the next set of slides, I explain, this is our map, and this map is based on Plan Bay Area 2050. Plan Bay Area 2050 defined equity priority areas based on different variables, but mainly they call equity priority areas the intersection in between the areas of the Bay Area that intersect low income and highest percentage of people of color. We did the same for the city of Santa Rosa. So what you're looking at in the screen is a map of the city of Santa Rosa. You can see Highway 12 crossing from north to south, and Highway 101 crossing from north to south, and you can see Highway 12 crossing from east to west. And in this specific map, you can see blue areas. Blue areas are the highest percentage of people of color, and you will see yellow areas that are areas with the highest percentage of households who live in poverty. And the green areas are actually the intersection of both areas. Why did we do this type of mapping? We wanted to identify the areas of the city that we believe haven't been integrated into the conversation of planning, and based on past policies that were discriminative against people of color, we also included the voices of these communities. So for us, these areas are particularly important to do outreach in, and we want to hear specific voices in these areas. That's why we're doing this type of mapping, and that's what we wanted to explain to you. There's a lot of more details, technical details about how we created this. I don't want to go too deep into there unless there are questions later tonight. This is actually for you to process and get feedback from you. But the question that I would like to actually get to, if we can go to the last set of slides in this conversation that go till barriers for equity priority communities. If we can go there, please, I would really appreciate it. I give details of every and each population that we presented at the beginning. And what I want to specifically tell you about is why are we selecting these specific communities? And next slide, please. That one is the one that I wanted to get. Thank you so much, Noe. Why are we selecting these communities? First of all, because we identify barriers that cross in between all these populations and that are actually affecting them to not be part of this conversation in relationship to planning, but also government participation. So the first one is technical language. We use a lot of technical language in planning that we actually want to make available for people and make easier for people to understand, and in general in government. Number 2, we have time limitations and physical locations. We make people come to our meetings instead of going to them. People who have limited financial resources sometimes can't attend our meetings because they're working, or they do have a job that requires them to be paid by the hour, and then they can't join us or be part even of the CAC meetings. We sometimes lack of cultural appropriateness, and we want to change this and create events that are created in a way that communities feel comfortable talking in. Number 5, and related to the previous one, but not necessarily, is English proficiency. There's communities who speak other languages and sometimes don't speak English well, and have really greater challenge to be reached by the city, and we want to put a specific attention of them. Number 6, and unfortunately, I think this is very general for the whole country and not only for the city of Santa Rosa. There's a lack of trust in government, not specifically local government, but government in general. And we want to change this. A lot has to do with immigration status, but a lot of other things have to do with discrimination and a lack of response from previous governments. And last but not least, in this COVID-19 times, there's a lot of lack of technology savviness and a technological gap that we are very aware of, and that's why we want to be out in the community instead of just being on online meetings. So these are the main barriers that we identified, and we want to follow specific strategies that we will talk about. Just yeah, next slide, thank you. First of all is have event collaboration. So we are actually here to tell you that we want you to invite us to any community events that you have. If your event is fun, please invite us to that one, because we want to be in the fun events so that the community actually wants to talk to us. But we're going to do this with other organizations. We're going to do this with the county. We're going to be in vaccination centers. We're going to be in pop-ups. We're going to be on farmers markets. We're going to be on food distributions. So for you to know, and if you want to participate with us, you're more than welcome to join us. We have a targeted approach, and this means that we're going to be going to these specific areas that I showed previously on the map. And that's why it is important that if you think that we are selecting the populations correctly, and if you have any other ideas of where should we be going, please let us know. We will have an equity grant program that will be open starting next year, depending on our finance team. And we want to provide people up to $2,500 per project. If you have neighbors, if yourselves, you want to be part of the community engagement strategies, and you want to create an event with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, with your community organization, and you have ideas on how to work with any of these 10 equity priority communities, this grant is for those groups. And finally, but not less important, we are having adjustments to our community involvement strategy, which means we're going to have to make everything more accessible for communities. So we'll have Spanish to translation, but we're also having some other surprises, like having a multilingual meeting. So we are also asking for your support. If you speak any other language, or you have families, friends who you know who would like to be part of this conversation and be part of our multilingual meetings, please let us know and join us in this outreach that we're going to have to be more inclusive in terms of all the events and all the work that we're doing. So this is actually my last slide, and what I want to say is, if we can go to the next slide, Noe, please. I want to ask you this question. Would you consider we missed to include any equity priority population in Santa Rosa that you're aware of? And if so, which is the population? And this is this doesn't have to be a long discussion. If you want to provide feedback, or if you want to tell us about a community or a population that we missed, please just help us raising your hand, and let's have this conversation. Is that okay, Michelle? Can I open the space for conversation? Awesome. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and do that. So the question on the floor is here: if the committee members, does anybody have any comments in general in response to Beatriz's brief presentation? Again, note that this is a brief presentation. There will be more. You'll have the opportunity to be able to respond more profoundly. And are there any communities that we're missing from this list? So Steve, go ahead, please. And yeah, please just raise your hand if you wanted to verbalize your comments. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was just curious about, well, it's pretty fantastic what you presented, but are these strategies working?
It's about to start, Steve.
Yeah.
We're relying on everyone here in this team to be part of the same strategy. We're actually already planning the events on this specific locations and trying to go to the specific communities and reaching out to all the community members that we know and nonprofits and organizations that are actually part of this list. So yes.
Okay, so the tremendous barriers here, and I was curious, a little more than curious, how do we make this more effective? And if the strategies are working, fantastic.
So this is just the start of the strategy, and we want to get your response to see if this is a good one. It sounds like you're in favor of it. You sound like you're favorite. Do you have any other comments, Steve? Anything that you would want to add to this?
No, there's no comments I'd like to add to it other than just I'm trying to become more informed to see what strategies are working.
Okay.
Because the issues are real. And so I was more inquiring about, are these strategies working or are they not? And how much are they working? How
Sure.
effective are they? So that was my work.
So maybe I can help you out here and just say that maybe we should track metrics in terms of participation, in terms of just how effective we're being in reaching population. So I just want to tag on to Steve, to your comment. Lee, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I'm the new kid on the block.
It's okay.
The learning curve is straight up.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Thank you.
Lee, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Noe and group. I want to first compliment you all on the information that you just presented. I think it's comprehensive and touches on just about everything that would go through my mind. Although I would love to see on your color-coded map where the priority groups reside, is there further breakout of who those groups are within those color zones?
Okay, let me go back here. So your question, Lee, is there further distinction between the groups is what you'd like to understand a little bit more?
What I would like to understand, for example, I reside over in the Mount Taylor area. I think on your map in the green there, I'd like to understand in more detail all over the whole, wherever you see the green, is what groups and what percentages are they found to be in those areas?
Got it. Okay. And just to clarify, I'm just being conscious of time for everybody. Again, apologize if I want to, I know we can get really deep into the weeds in this, but I want to encourage everybody to just, if you have a question, we're going to take it. I wouldn't expect an immediate response, but Beatriz, do you have just a quick, brief response that we can provide, Lee?
I wanted to tell you that I will send the presentation together with the link so you can go and explore in the maps. And then if there's an additional technical question or you want to provide me comments, you'll have more time for this. I just wanted to make the presentation to you so that if you had anything on top of your mind, we could discuss it. But that said, I'll wait and hear your comments, and I'll go ahead and send everyone this presentation together with the links so you can go into the maps and explore. This goes for you, Lee. I know you want to go deeper. We have a lot of information that you might be interested in looking at. But
nonetheless, the comment is still we want to see a little bit more distinction within those green areas, I think is the comment, correctly? And
that's correct.
All right, just to see what's really underneath the green blob there, right? Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see, I have Annie. Annie, go ahead, please.
My only question would be, are we tracking the homeless encampments in this map?
Okay. The question about homeless.
For the answer, I know I'm just putting it out.
Yeah, fair enough. I just want to repeat to make sure that this is about homelessness, and you're specifically asking about tracking the homeless encampments in there. Yes, and I know that unhoused individuals is number 8 here. It's an important one. Annette, please go ahead.
Sorry, my question was answered. I wanted to see the list of equity populations again.
Okay, great. Ryan, thank you. Go ahead, please.
One other just quick comment is I know when using census tract data, you're obviously looking at a certain high level of granularity. So if there's any opportunities to identify communities that are more exact, like I'm thinking maybe affordable housing units that are, maybe outside those tracts, but, obviously a disadvantaged population, those sorts of opportunities to make sure to include them.
So are you suggesting, Ryan, basically specific areas, affordable housing developments, and those might be outside of this green zone, but might be still an equity priority?
Right, exactly.
So maybe mapping, overlaying affordable housing, public housing units, other types of things like that, correct?
Correct.
All right, great. Any other comments, folks?
We have Yvette. Yvette is raising.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Yvette. Hi, Yvette, go ahead.
Just really quick, it's in relation to the data. I know that the census tract has come out, and are you going to do any adjustments to what you have done so far just to see if there's any major changes in the data?
Right. So updating the data with the latest information, basically. Okay. Thank you. That's a great comment. All right. Any other comments here or questions that you want to submit? Maybe not for immediate response, but just for staff to consider and ponder. All right.
Yeah, it's a good job. I like the list, and that is exactly what's in our community and what needs to be tackled.
Great. Okay. So now just to follow up here for everybody, I know we got the comments on the population. Are there any communities that are missing here? I know we've mentioned a couple. We want a little bit more granularity, maybe people outside of the green area. Are there any communities here that are missing? Anything that you would say, yeah, pay attention to that a little bit more? All right. Yeah, go ahead, Annette.
What about people who are going through mental issues, drug addicts, drug addiction, and things like that?
Right. So I know that we have individuals who have been incarcerated, but I don't know that we've explicitly called out folks that are experiencing, addiction issues. So, okay.
Addiction and mental, because I think both of those have a lot to do with not having homes.
Absolutely, sure. The connection with unhoused people, but more broadly, the people with mental health, suffering from mental health issues, or addiction issues. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Any other groups, ideas that you want to target here?
I do have a quick comment.
Yeah, please go ahead, Yvette.
This is a good start, but as we're doing this work and we're moving forward, we have the ability to come back and make adjustments, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is a live thing, right? We're presenting this as a sort of first draft to you to understand a little bit more. You're our liaisons to the community, to the Santa Rosa area, and we want you to tell us. So what are we missing? How should we look at this? What are the frames that we need to understand, the lenses, whatever you want to say? So absolutely, Yvette, I think that, if there is a chance to kind of adjust as we move along, I think that'd be important to do so. And I apologize, I'm calling everybody by the first name. I've completely lost protocol and not saying, committee member minor. I hope that's fine with everybody. Lee, go ahead, please. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Noe. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Noe. I was just curious, in terms of priority groups in the future, as well as now, teachers, police officers, professionals that we would like to attract to this community. And there's usually difficulties with doing so, either housing or income or fear of fires or whatever it might be. And the sort of the title of individuals, I see different cuts of individuals, and it's not income necessarily, it's not disabilities, but these are professionals who are going to train our kids and our workforce and all of that. Any thought to what Santa Rosa can do to become more attractive to these sorts of people?
Sure. So you're getting at workforce issues, right? Specifically targeting workforce that is needed in the city, but that might be priced out for some reason, or that might not, that we want to, I think you're saying, retain and also attract.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right, I think that's another one to add to the list. Michelle, did you want to add something here?
Well, I just love this discussion and fantastic list of the priorities. What occurred to me in looking just at number one, for example, teasing out how does income affect life and how does that manifest in a plan? And it makes me think about transportation. And if there's a way to, I don't know if you'd say those people without a vehicle, but it does, so I'm not sure the category, but just recognizing that having access to work, school, recreation, home, shopping, and so forth. I don't know how exactly that translates to this list, but it is an aspect that should make its way into the planning. And I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, thank you for that, Michelle. All right, so any other final comments before we move on? Okay, thank you everybody for your feedback, and we will move forward with that. But I think that transit dependent population is another one to add to the list right there, Michelle. Thank you so much for that. All right, so now I want to bring on my colleagues, Dan Omsten and Andrea. Is she here? I don't see her. Andrea, is she here?
She's here.
Okay. I'm seeing Andrea Howard from Placeworks. So I'd like to invite you to present the alternatives workbook, please.
Sounds good. I'll start, and Andrea will add in some of the discussion as well. So good to see everyone. Again, Dan Amson with MIG. It's been a little while since we last met, but it's great to see the committee here again this evening. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about the alternatives report and the alternatives process, and where we've been doing analysis and sort of developing all of this as a team with city staff here over the last about 4 or 5 months or so. As Amy mentioned earlier, the community vision that the City Council and Planning Commission reviewed, added to and refined over the summer was a key starting point to this project. During that community engagement event set, we actually received over 3,000 individual comments from the community during workshops and online surveys. So a ton of information in addition to the vision discussions as well. And we've been recording all of that. It's posted on the website in various summaries, but using that as a starting point to think through these unique and very plausible alternatives for the future. And they're high level very intentionally because we're starting this alternatives discussion. And really tonight is the beginning of the community discussion on alternatives. But the reason for doing alternatives in general plan is to really start thinking through where growth or change or new buildings, new jobs could be focused, and then what are sort of the pros and cons around locating things in different ways or different areas. And that's really where these alternatives start. So they look at a range of possibilities for future growth and change. As Andrea will mention, we're assuming approximately the same number of new homes or jobs under each alternative. So there isn't a high growth or low growth. That's very intentional. It's really to focus the community discussion on where growth should occur. So I'm going to go through the alternatives and just sort of describe the differences between them and how they were developed. Andrea is going to talk about some of the specifics and some of the analysis our team has done to look at the pros and cons. We're going to have a few pause points to do actual quick polls with the CAC because there's a lot of us here tonight, but just some fun polls to get some feedback. And like the last discussion item, have some additional discussion as well. I did want to mention this is the starting point of the discussion, and we want to get some initial feedback, as Noe mentioned. We can still have the next couple weeks up until 12/24 to get additional comments and ideas once CAC members really have a chance to dive into this. So don't feel you need to be an expert in this. This is intentionally pretty high level. So the first alternative we've named central corridors. And what this alternative is looking at is focusing future growth. And essentially what we mean by that is housing towards downtown or towards these central corridors that are shown here in a yellow line and sort of a yellow shade. And most of these areas already have good access to transit, connections to transit facilities, whether it's smart train or city bus. And so this is maybe could be thought of as sort of a more compact development form. But in this scenario, most community needs such as jobs, retail, commercial services, daily needs can be met in or near the central part of the city. So focusing future growth towards the downtown area or along central corridors. Alternative 2 takes a little bit different approach. And this comes from a lot of the comments we heard from the community and this CAC about building some of these neighborhood amenities and neighborhood uses. So as you can see, that yellow shaded area where a lot of future housing will be located is spread out more along these neighborhood main streets. And so this alternative concentrates housing, jobs, other destinations along these corridors, but also establishes more community centers or nodes, which are represented in these red dots. And in this scenario, nearly all residents would have access to daily needs within walking or biking distance. So reducing a lot of needs for vehicle travel or transit travel through or across the city, because it's focused on sort of these neighborhoods as the growth areas. Now, alternative 3 is a third option here, and this looks at really distributing housing throughout the city. Housing came up in all the community discussions as one of, if not the greatest concern or need next to equity with the community. And this alternative really looks at distributing duplexes, triplexes, courtyards, single family homes, all types of housing throughout the city on parcels that can accommodate this new housing. So they're either currently vacant or have the ability for increased housing or more units. And that's why this is sort of spread out, because it's really focused on particular areas where housing can go. But since new housing is distributed in each neighborhood, residents then may need to travel by vehicle or bus to access daily needs as well. So it's creating this range of possibility on different alternatives to start the discussion with the community on, okay, what are some of the pros and cons of these 3? So as part of this, and this gets to Beatrice's comment on, we're trying to reduce the jargon and make this very visual and easy for people to understand. So we also created some of these sort of cross-section diagrams. This is not a particular part of the city. It's generalized intentionally. But for alternative 1, the central corridors concept, you can think of the downtown station area on the left, sort of the purple, reddish purple area. And as you move away from the downtown, you'll have higher densities closer to these high frequency bus routes, which again are those close corridor connections to the downtown. Retail, other medium density housing will be located along those routes. And then as you move sort of away from those corridors, it's essentially a lot of the low density residential, rural residential that already exists in most of the suburban parts of Santa Rosa today. So again, this is focused on the downtown and growing along the essential corridors. Alternative 2, so visualizing that in sort of this three-dimensional graphic, as we're growing or creating these neighborhood centers, there's still a focus on the high frequency bus routes, but not quite as much intensity or density maybe as alternative 1. But you'll also get these retail areas or residential areas that are out within neighborhoods. That's what we're trying to show here on the far right, is additional amenities within neighborhoods as part of these new sort of centers or nodes that are created. And then alternative 3 really looks at bolstering what we already have as sort of the key starting point. But the other unique difference, again, is sort of housing and distributing that housing where it can go on vacant parcels. So the medium density or low density or rural residential is a bit more spread out, or I shouldn't say spread out, intermixed under this alternative, because we're really focusing on creating housing efficiently to meet housing needs. So with that, I'll pass it to Andrea. This is just an example of all 3 of them together. But one of the key things our team has been working on the last few months with staff is really evaluating the impacts or benefits, pros and cons of each of the alternatives against each other, essentially, to articulate that to communities as we go into the workshops and community discussions. Andrea?
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Andrea, and I'm going to walk through some of the details of these alternatives with you, mostly by talking about information that's in the workbook. So, keep in mind you have access to that and you can look at it in a lot more detail later on. I just want to call your attention to a couple of key things here. And as we move between topics, like Dan said, we're going to pause a couple times for polls, but I also would like you to keep 2 questions in mind throughout. What we want to find out from you all eventually is which of these alternatives comes closest to meeting your vision for Santa Rosa's future. And then second, what would you change about that alternative to make it better? So we're going to kick things off here looking at housing and economic factors in each alternative. As Dan said, they all have, each of the alternatives have the same amount of housing, 36,000 units, and that's based on the amount that we have estimated the existing general plan has in its remaining capacity. And you could choose later on that you want to increase or decrease that, but we're starting at an equal playing field here. And then the maps that Dan presented show how those distribute housing in a unique pattern depending on the alternative. We plugged those 36,000 units into a market assessment to estimate how many non-residential or how much of the non-residential uses we could support in the future with these 36,000 new homes. So we've estimated up to 1 million square feet of retail space. That's like including coffee shops and clothing stores, up to 2 million square feet of office space like dentists and attorneys' offices, and up to 1.5 million square feet of industrial facilities, including warehousing and manufacturing businesses. These commercial uses would generally follow the same patterns as the residential uses in each alternative. The exception being the industrial uses, which we anticipate would locate in the same places in each alternative along the freeway because of the access that they need to regional transportation. And as Dan introduced, what that means is that future residents would live in varying proximities to shopping and local jobs depending on the alternative, and the types of housing would differ, ranging from dense multifamily units close to jobs in the alternative 1, and then more duplexes and triplexes further from services in alternative 3, alternative 2, kind of somewhere in the middle there. So we're going to pause for the first set of polls that I think Noe is going to queue up for us.
Thank you, Andrea. Well, actually, let's go ahead and do that. The first question is, and then we'll take a couple of questions. Jen, I know I saw your hand up, and we'll just do this poll and then come back and have some discussion. So the first question here is, where should we encourage new housing? The options: downtown area, neighborhood corridors, i.e. Sebastopol Road, it's actually Sebastopol Avenue, Mendocino Avenue, Franklin Avenue, etc., or throughout the city. Go ahead and continue here. Continue your polling. A lot of folks have not yet.
And one quick clarification, if I may, the polling is for CAC members tonight, but I know we have some members of the public who are also on this webinar. This is a precursor to a big community engagement event beginning in 2022. So the community will also have opportunity to weigh in as well. I just want to mention it.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so did everybody, it looks like everybody has polled at this point, correct? Okay, let me go ahead and end the poll. No, all right, one more. There you go. All right, I think we're good. So it looks like we're saying folks are pretty even throughout the city, neighborhood corridors, downtown area. Okay, so I'm gonna just share the results here. So you can see here, you know, folks are, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so let's go one question at a time is I think the problem here. I was like, why are we having so many things going on? Okay, so the first question here is, where should we encourage? But we did go through everything, so that's fine. The next question is, where should we encourage new jobs? And you had the same kind of responses. All right, downtown area. Let's see, throughout the city. Okay, you see that there's a pretty broad mix. And then last one, is it okay for housing to be more separated from commercial uses? And those even split, yes and no. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So I did say that we could come back and have some discussion here, but I know in the interest of time, let's just go ahead and do that, but do it briefly because we do have a few other things to get through. So Jen, did you have a comment or that you wanted to jump in here and make?
Well, I do, and I mean, it actually really speaks to the results that were just right there. Is that I'm unclear as to why we're making why this is presented as a choice, and as it feels like it falls trichotomy, if you will. Like,
sure,
I don't know that there's any way, really, in reality, to meet our housing needs and to serve the people of the city who all have different kinds of needs, and it's a diverse group of people, luckily, by focusing on any one of these things. And I think like state housing laws really speak to that, is that they're a suite that encourage all of them.
All of them. Mm-hmm.
And so to me this is a counterproductive discussion, actually, and question, and it should be much more related to how do we encourage housing and development in all of these places in the best way possible? How do we make sure that the people are served with transportation who live out in areas that are zoned primarily for single family homes? How do we make sure that we can attract developers for downtown Santa Rosa? How do we continue to develop in our commercial corridors and high resource areas, but attract a more diverse community in those areas?
Right.
So
this is just a start, Jen. And so, right, we expect that the whole thing will be the CAC and the community will choose and mix and match and basically combine pieces of alternatives. So, but nonetheless, I understand what you're saying. There shouldn't be a dichotomy or trichotomy, as you said. Thank you for that.
I really can't, I'm sorry, I can't, like, this is it's a frustrating, the question is like, where should we encourage? And I feel like that setting this up as that's the threshold question is right there creating the wrong conversation.
Fair enough.
I will stop.
Thank you for that, Jen. Appreciate that.
If I can add real quick, and that's great feedback, Jen, because the questions obviously were refined as well. I did want to just mention or add a little bit to what Noe mentioned about picking and choosing and refining. This is the start of the alternatives process. We do want to create some options that people really think about these choices like we are here tonight. We had a similar poll with city staff, and there was almost kind of like one answer that came up a lot. So I'm actually emboldened by seeing how much variation there is across the board with this group, which is kind of what we're hoping is that discussion with the community to really start thinking about the pros and cons and some of this variation. So it's interesting that there's so much almost equal split with this group as well. But to your point, we can clarify some of these questions as we go through. But I just want to mention, this is our goal here is to work through these alternatives and have these discussions with the community, leading eventually to a preferred alternative at the end of this engagement process.
Thank you for that. So Lee, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Noe. I think I was a little confused on the last exercise. I thought it was a prioritization. Where did we want to go first, second, third, fourth? And so twice I tried to put the regional or the housing where you could have little retail outlets throughout the city that people identify with culturally or whatever. But also I think and have thought for a long time that the downtown is anemic in terms of affordable housing, retail like supermarkets and nightclub activity, perhaps, things like that. So
sure.
I was just confused on how we pulled that.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. And I think that's also getting at the problematic nature of the question, as Jen was saying. So I think we can do a better job of maybe, rephrasing the questions, or even like Dan said, really thinking about what this means. It's not a one or the other, but rather, could it be a prioritization? Annette, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I have two comments. One is I've heard twice here tonight you saying that the polls were really close, but when I saw them, the option to put housing throughout the city was double the other numbers in both cases. And I think that's reason because there's a lot of people who are concerned about low income housing getting dumped in their neighborhood compared to other types of housing. The second thing is on the first chart you had where you said 5% increase in retail. if you're going to have a 50% increase in population and a 50% increase in business, aren't you going to need more than 5% increase in retail?
Great, thank you for that comment. All right, we'll take just Joel's comment and then we'll go ahead and move on just in the interest of time and really equity, okay? I apologize, Steve. We're gonna come back. There's gonna be more opportunities to comment. Okay, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, I think in terms of whether housing should be separated from commercial uses, it really depends on what kind of commercial uses we're talking about. I would love to see every neighborhood have, nearby convenience stores and so forth. Have at least some kind of grocery store close by. But if we're talking about bigger commercial uses like Coddingtown, for example, I mean, not everyone's going to have that in their backyard. So I just feel like that the question is a little hard to answer without being a little more specific.
Fair enough. It's about nuance is what you're getting at, right? Yeah. What type of use is there? Okay. Again, Steve, I apologize. We're going to just move on to the next set of slides here.
Thanks,
Andrea?
Noe. Yeah, thanks. And I do appreciate those questions. And just to clarify our process, once we get through these next couple of slides, we'll open the floor and just make sure that we can go around to each one of the CAC members, make sure you all have an opportunity to share your input on what we're sharing here, and then also ask any questions. And then I just did want to address Annette's comment about the 5% increase. And these are, we could get you more information. I think that there are links in the workbook that we shared to a technical appendix. This is all based on a really in-depth economics analysis. So this is information that some economics experts plugged in and came out with. Okay, so this next slide looks now at the impacts of these land uses on travel patterns. Each alternative will have similar positive impacts on reducing vehicle miles traveled per service population, and that's a group that includes everyone who lives, works, and plays in Santa Rosa. The alternatives will also work to support more trips made via transit, walking, or wheeling. Alternative 1 would do the best job of this, increasing alternative transportation use by 10%. That's largely due to the really compact design. And alternatives 2 and 3 would also increase active transit trips, but to a lesser degree. Next slide, please, Noe. Each of the alternative land use patterns is supported by a unique circulation plan that would aim to optimize mobility and maximize minimize the vehicle emissions. Alternative 1, we envision, would focus on investments getting people downtown, mostly via transit and bike infrastructure improvements. Alternative 2 would address gaps in the sidewalk and bike lanes to better connect each resident to their neighborhood center. And alternative 3 would make targeted enhancements along corridors where there are large groups of residents and expand the bike network to make crosstown riding safer and easier. And with that, Noe, can you go ahead and administer the next set of polls?
All right, so here's another set of questions for you. And again, we want to ask you, where should we prioritize transportation investments? Question 1, and you see the options here: throughout the city, neighborhood corridors, or downtown area, said backwards. Next question is, what transportation investments would you like the city to make? Sidewalk and crosswalk improvements, additions, bike improvements and additions to public transit, public transit improvements, additional stops. Okay. Let's go ahead and see, did everybody, we're getting there, 13. Okay, I think we are there. Final, let's go ahead and close that poll. Okay, let me go ahead and share the results. So it looks like neighborhood corridors, prioritize investment neighborhood corridors and throughout the city, primarily larger retail areas. And then for number 2, it is, the largest 44% is public transit improvements, additional stops, improvements, stop amenities, etc. But also bike and I assume pedestrian improvements, and then bike improvements, additions, and then sidewalk and crosswalks came in with 25%. But okay, great, thank you. All right, let's keep going. So, and we will come back to everybody and have a round of comments.
Okay, so for our next slide here, we are looking at safety outcomes of each alternative. For each alternative, this assessment looked at where people would live and work in relation to where various hazards exist. And so from that, we found that relative to the other alternatives, alternative 1 is safest for wildfires, floods, and landslides. You can see that highlighted there in the green. This is because that alternative pulls the most housing away from high flood risk areas and away from the wildland urban interface, which is most at risk for wildfire. Alternative 2 is safest for extreme heat, public safety power shutoffs, and evacuation. That's because the development around the community centers best supports system-wide approaches to circulation for evacuation planning. And alternative 3 is safest for earthquakes and fire caused by earthquakes because it locates the most housing outside of high-risk areas for violent shaking from the Rogers Creek Fault in the event of an earthquake. And I understand that the PSPS is a timely event for you all, and we're glad that that didn't impact your attendance today. But next, I think we want to find out about what your top concerns are. Noe, can you please administer the next poll?
Okay, so let's go ahead and do the polling here. Which hazard or safety issue are you most concerned about? And this is just a single question here. Wildfire, obviously a big one. Floods, earthquakes, fires caused by earthquakes, landslides, extreme heat events, evacuations, and power shutoffs. Okay, looks like maybe 1 or 2 more people are polling here. Again, this is just a conversation starter, folks. So what we have is, let's go ahead and end that poll. And I'll share the results. Wildfire is at 56%, and then earthquakes at 28%. And then, of course, fires by earthquakes, so sort of related. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So this next set of 2 slides here look at equity. This is the final topical spread in your workbook. And equity is really a huge priority to the city and to the community. But while these alternatives present key distinctions, they're really not so different from each other that we could draw definitive conclusions about how anyone would better advance equity compared to another. So instead of trying to do that here, the workbook aims to provide a foundational education on the existing inequities across the city. So going back to some of these maps look somewhat familiar. Beatrice's presentation earlier, and we looked at everything from, or a variety of things. Here we've highlighted inequities related to life expectancy outcomes, educational outcomes, and the third one here is where you cite industrial sites in relation to, there's a strong correlation with that in our equity priority communities. So because of that, as Beatrice explained, these equity priority communities are going to be a big focus of our engagement work, so that we make sure that we learn from the folks who are most impacted how we can address these issues that affect their health and quality of life outcomes. Next slide, please. Okay, and then also earlier in the presentation today, Amy talked about the vision that you all helped us develop back in the summer, and she shared a vision statement. That statement is actually accompanied by a much longer list of pretty detailed ideas related to several different areas of interest, like health and housing and social justice. And as you can imagine, many of those have a direct correlation with equity. So we pulled from that document directly everything that the community had already told us they want to make sure is a part of this general plan update. And we are reminding you all here that you've told us that this should be a part of the general plan, and so it will be. So we've just itemized some of these key things that we'll be working to make sure that the not only these land use patterns that we're working to refine as part of the alternatives discussion, but also the goals and policies and implementation measures, that they also work to address equity concerns. And then I think now we are ready to turn over to our equity poll. Thanks, Noe.
So we have a poll again. What are the biggest equity issues impacting the community today? All right, so access to education, quality jobs, environmental risk area, and access to health services and support. I think one is missing here. Investment of infrastructure. Okay, so well, I think we have some missing, but that's all right. I think if we can verbalize this again. These are just conversation starters. But for now, let's just go ahead and vote with what we have here, and then we can verbalize them afterwards. All right. So it looks like we do have all participants here. Okay, so end the poll and share the results. Looks like quality jobs and is leading the pack with 50%. Access to education with another 25%. Okay, great. Thank you for that info. All right, now let's get back to the presentation.
Okay, we are almost to the finish line here, at least for these slides, and we can get in the fun part of hearing from you all. This last part of the workbook really just details how we're going to be working to connect with community members over the next couple of months to get their input on the preferred alternative. This includes web-based and as well as in-person workshops and activities, youth-based events. So as Beatrice explained earlier, we're really trying to make a diligent effort to ensure that we can connect with all members of the community. And I just want to highlight that your role as CAC members and hosting these community meetings is really an essential part of this. So we're really appreciative of you all signing up to be a part of this, and also just remind you that we're here to support you. So the next slide here is going to be my last slide, and really it's just a look back at, can you advance to the next slide, please? We're looking back just at that side-by-side comparison of the alternatives again. You saw this a little bit earlier, and just to give you a sense of the different patterns that you see across development in each of these. So like I said, we wanted to just get your initial reactions to these with, I want to get your initial reactions to these. I think we have one more set of polls, and then we'll get into the detailed discussion. And we appreciate that these polls are really just high level and don't get into the nuance that you all will be able to share with us later.
Great. Thank you for that, Andrea. So let's get into a group discussion. What I'd like to do, though, is just go ahead. Oh, sorry. Did I skip? I skipped the polls. I'm sorry about that. All right. The polling question here. What is your level of support for alternative 1? And this is not supportive, neutral, or supportive. Just again, conversation starter here. And question 2. What is your level of support for alternative 2, neighborhood main streets? And question 3, what is your level of support for alternative 3, distributed housing? And finally, which scenario comes closest to expressing your vision for Santa Rosa's future? All right, so let's go ahead, and I think everybody has polled 16, correct. Great. Everybody chimed in. Okay, I'm ending the poll here, and I'm going to share the results. Okay. All right, so it looks like with alternative 1, most people are neutral at 44%. some support and some not support, roughly equal. Support alternative 2, neighborhood Main Street, supportive, wins with gets 81%. Let's see, and then alternative 3, distributed housing, is roughly supportive and neutral, equal actually, at 44%. And then in terms of comes closest to expressing your vision for Santa Rosa's future is alternative 2 with 56%, then followed by alternative 3, distributed housing. Okay, great. So let's get into let's get into some discussion. I do want to hear, I think it's important that we hear from everybody. I know some of you have already expressed some opinions here, but I do want to go ahead and ask some of the folks that have not yet participated in any comment here. Let's see, I'm going to call on, is it Ali Soto? Do you have any comments? Okay. Omar, how are you, Omar? Do you have any comments that you want to express?
I'm doing good, thank you. I think for me, really the only thing I had any questions about was if there's been any look at age demographics and how that's being incorporated into these kind of designs.
Okay, you want to understand a little bit more about age demographics and how they will impact different groups of people, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you for that, Omar. See, Michael, any comments, please?
I don't have any specific comments. I think what Jen Close said, as far as, you know, this seems like a discussion that maybe not be fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we should support housing throughout the city, and also, you know, focus on the downtown. Right, that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, great.
So yeah, I just think, you know, the neighborhood corridor streets though is one of what I like the most, and that's because we are kind of a spread out city, and you know, to have the services close to people's residences makes a lot of sense to me.
Excellent, thank you for that. Yes, so you're again echoing what Jen had said earlier about including housing throughout the city, not just in one place. Okay. It's a false choice, false dichotomy or trichotomy, as she said. Let's see.
No
Lisa.
way. If we have answers to some of these questions, can we address them quickly?
Yeah,
so
please.
There's probably a more detailed response, but Omar, in response to your question, I did want to highlight that one of the priority groups that was listed when Beatrice presented were seniors and youth. So we have looked at least that far in terms of where these populations are more highly concentrated. And then following up on that comment from Michael and from Jen, I wanted to acknowledge that, you know, of course, housing is a huge issue in the community. And again, you know, these will be distributed. I do want to just highlight that if you take a look at the alternative spreads where it shows the block group diagram and the map together, you can see some percentages on where housing would be distributed. And so, you know, just as a reminder for folks, it's while those are the places that in the focus areas we're concentrating housing, housing would be also growing across the city. It's just about where there might be a larger concentration of it in one place or another. That may not fully address the concerns that you all have, but I did want to point that out, that it's not just about bringing housing only to the places that are highlighted on these maps.
Thank you for that, Andrea. I want to go ahead and go to Lisa. Lisa, if you have any comments, anything that you'd like to just either chime in about these alternatives, any comments that you want to voice for the record?
First of all, I wanted to express my appreciation for the process and all the work that's been done. I've been very impressed. And I am learning so much about my community through listening to everyone and all of the CIC members included. My comment is about connectivity and transportation. And I was delighted to see that some of the comments from the groups that I've worked with were represented, and that within the disabled community, they live throughout the entire city. And so connectivity with increased routes and bus stop improvements are very significant for them, as well as sidewalks that make walking easier and movement easier. So that's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Elisa. Really appreciate your comments and your kudos. Mr. Pedriff, do you have any comments? Oh, yeah, you have to be unmute. Caught you off guard there.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. In being asked to choose between the various alternatives as they were presented, it occurred to me unexpectedly, I guess, as I was sort of talking to myself, that I developed a criteria which helped me decide, and the criteria didn't have to do with housing, it had to do with the use of single occupancy vehicles. And I thought the issue of housing was in some way, I would prefer a housing distribution, I guess, which discouraged the need for people to use single occupancy vehicles. I would think that a neighborhood or a community works best where you can walk or ride a bike or use public transit to take care of most of your needs. You know, we talk about needing housing in the downtown to make it more vital. But if you live in the downtown, you have to get in your car and drive to a grocery store. So there you are again, you're kind of, in some sense, I guess, in my thinking, there's a hidden villain in all this that we tend to not see. And that's what? Our over-reliance on driving everywhere we go to meet our simple needs, just to go to a coffee shop, got to drive, groceries, drive, work, you got to drive. And I would think that I would advocate that we have a housing pattern which discourages that need or which lessens that need.
Understood. Thank you for that, Mr. Pedriff. Appreciate your comment. Okay, let me go back and make sure that I got Erica. Did I already go by you, Erica Mikesh?
No, I haven't spoken yet tonight, but I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to go back to is it Ali Soto? Did you come back to us? Okay, maybe not. All right, Michael Cook, how are you? Do you have any comments on the alternatives?
Yeah, I already spoke. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Patricia. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, I haven't said anything yet, but I think the only question or comment is I live in an unincorporated area of Santa Rosa. So I don't know if there's a simple answer to why certain areas of the city haven't been incorporated, but there's so much space out here that it feels like an easy addition to some of our housing needs. So alternative 2 spoke to me as somebody who lives very far from all of our services.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. I don't know if Andrea or Dan, if that might be a bigger question at this point regarding expansion of the city. So, I don't see anybody jumping in to answer this comment. So Patricia, I think we're going to table it. Or Dan, go ahead if you have.
Well, I would say I don't think we have a direct answer. There's some complexities around people who are there voting to be annexed in and those kinds of things. There's a process behind it, but it's a really great question to raise because we're going to hear from the community as well during the workshop. So thank you for raising that. We'll think through how to integrate that to the process as well.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you for the question, Patricia. Let's see, Kevin. Go ahead, please. Any comments or feedback?
Yeah, thanks. No, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to echo Jen for sure. I think it is getting the conversation started. We're going to be piecing these together, but it's tough to pick one over the other.
Fair enough.
One thing I do want to say, though, is working with youth. I did notice that alternative 3, the distributed housing, up to 2% increased share of walking, biking, and transit trips. And as someone that has a young child and again works with many youth, that just won't cut it. So 10% even on alternative 1 is not going to be enough to where we need to go. And that's, we've already talked about economists, but when we're going to science and common values here, we have to get that number way higher. So I think a combination of all these, the distributed housing makes me think of the same model we've been going down thus far, which has failed us.
Right.
Thank
You want to break the paradigm. I get
No
you,
doubt.
Kevin. Absolutely understood. All right.
No way. Can I make one quick comment?
Yes, please.
I think that was a great comment, Kevin. And one thing I can say that might help make you feel a little bit better about this is that these numbers are all just based on the existing land use patterns. They don't account for yet the kinds of transportation improvements that are in the pipeline and also planned or will be planned as part of this general plan update. So I agree there's more that we can do, and there's more that we will do as part of this process.
So that's key, right? That's key, that these are the existing rules, and this is what it allows under the existing rules. And that's what this process is really about, is reformatting, rechanging those rules. So I think to your kind of cutting edge here, Kevin. Let's go to Annie. Go ahead, Annie.
Some of my concerns are how do you determine, so if you say, okay, we're gonna build up this part of the city, or we're going to have these hubs, we can't force grocery stores to these hubs. So it's kind of an illusion that we're going to make these little cities that are going to be all inclusive, and that these people will have all their services or a good portion of their services around them. What will ensure that will happen on alternative number 2? Mm-hmm. And I also feel like with the fires that we've had, if they start, if we don't have as many in the coming years, it all looks good. But from what I've been seeing, a lot of people are trying to move closer to the downtown area, mm-hmm. feeling safer in that capacity. So those are my 2 comments.
Okay. I think your comment about, sort of forcing the market in general is, I think, what you're getting at, right? How is this going to do that? How is that this process going to encourage, maybe not force, but encourage that that type of development that we're looking for? Okay, so that is noted. Let's see. Moving on to
Noe, can
yes,
I address
of course.
that just real quick?
I was about to go. Go ahead.
Okay. So none of this, we can't require the housing. The city is not responsible for building the housing. The city is not responsible for building the grocery stores, but we can make it possible and encourage that these uses be developed. And really the shortest answer to your question and concern here is that the more housing units you have in an area, the more demand there will be for services like grocery stores. So we really see those as driving when you'll see new retail, including grocery and other services, develop in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of a time frame do you think that would be to get enough community, to get enough houses built in an area to actually support these businesses?
That's a great question. I don't have a clear market-driven answer to give you an honest assessment of it, but I think it will take time.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Development takes time. Obviously, yep. The rules take time to build and development. Then, of course, the market needs to read that and then respond appropriately. So it's unfortunately, it's not a click of the fingers and get it done. But I think your comment about time and encouragement, not forcing, but encouragement, is really important, Annie. Okay, Yvette, go ahead, please. I'm just going down the line here.
Okay, thank you. So I have a lot, but I'm gonna try to go through it really fast.
Try to keep it succinct. We only got 20 minutes.
I'm going to. So some of the concerns is childcare, policing, and fire. And as far as the unincorporated areas, it takes anywhere from 20 to 30 years because that's what it took for Rosa to come into the community. And then also social justice, when we did the poll, that wasn't on there. Social justice and environmental justice is very key for me. Equity and housing throughout the city. We have a lot of elders that's throughout the city. So having self-healing hubs and being all inclusive in different areas is the way to go because not everybody can come to downtown. And then also rezoning is key in some of the issues that we're dealing with tonight. And then of course, for me, alternative 2 is the best way to go because there are a lot of people in our community that do not have cars, do not have transportation. So we have the ability to put something in their area where they can go and shop and be, and take care of their necessary needs, then that would be great. but then we still have public transit that will allow them to come into city if they need be. But we also need to have all of those things in place in order for it to be all conclusive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great job of being succinct. You had a lot to say and you kept it pretty tight there, Yvette. Thank you so much. Let's see. Moving on. Jen, go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks. I also have a lot of things, and I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little salty tonight.
No,
I appreciate you guys have been working hard, and
no problem.
I think we're like really headed down in the wrong path. And I see in the timeline that we are supposed to make a decision about an alternative in the winter or spring. And so I feel like the whole way we're approaching this conversation is problematic. And I'm going to repeat that because I just think it's really important. The state has created this pro-housing designation for cities, and to get it, you have to enact policies in different buckets, and it really goes across these things about around it, ending exclusionary zoning in single-family home areas, around developing downtown. And in terms of Jim Pedrick is exactly right that we want to discourage car use, and so if we really focus on downtown, that's not going to Patricia get in her car less. And if we really focus everywhere else, it's not going to help me get in my car less because I'm downtown. And so this making a choice is just a really big problem. And I would really suggest that we slow our roll here and come back and say, how are we framing the conversation? As an attorney, I'll say that the way you ask a question is the most important thing. The question you ask is much more important than anything else, is how you ask a question. So I really cannot overemphasize that. And I'm being annoying. And I know that
No, we hear you. We hear you.
The other thing is that when we pick these problems, it's got to be a prioritization. It can't just be one, pick one. It's really hard, I think, to get any meaningful data on that. Speaking of data, when we're and there are a lot of things that weren't on the equity list, access to housing was one of them. But when we or the community are making decisions about what's the biggest equity problem, I think it would be helpful for people to have some data on our educational outcomes, our health outcomes, our transportation access, our housing access, instead of just sort of what do you think? And certainly, folks, impressions or perceptions are valid and important. And I think it would be helpful for people to actually know some data when they're going to give you their opinion. Otherwise, I don't know how helpful it is.
Sure.
Then the other thing is that in terms of the hazards chart, you said that there's no flood danger downtown. They actually just did a whole presentation about that down in city council 2 weeks ago about how there's a huge flood danger downtown, and that it might have to, in fact, impact the way they're how much development they will allow downtown, or how they're going to allow development downtown. I also should be talking about, should we be looking at opening up the creek? And so that's just that's an assumption that's being presented is inaccurate.
Jen,
I got one more thing.
I know.
So my one more thing is, and then I'll stop, is and I'm frustrated because I go to way too many meetings, and I don't want to spend time in meetings, but the City of Petaluma group has met every single month for 8 months. And this is our third meeting in that same period of time. And so I'm not feeling like this is actually, it's either we're not being taken seriously, or we're not, or I certainly don't think we have an opportunity to be impactful. And so I would just say, so it's frustrating to hear you say, try to keep it short when we have 2 hours, because we haven't met much. And these are really significant things. And this is a group of folks who have a lot to share and whose perspectives are important. And so with that, I will end and get off my soapbox. And I appreciate your service and your time, really.
Fair enough, Jen. Thank you for your feedback. Really appreciate your voice and everybody's voice here. There is a lot to get through, and I don't mean to, cut you off or anybody off. I'm just trying to make sure that we're, just equitable in time is my main interest here. Also, these are just your initial reactions. What I was going to say, Jen, is that, and for everyone, if you have more, if you want to study the workbook, if you want to study the alternatives more, you're welcome to do that and provide us written feedback and written comments. So Ryan, please go ahead. Thank you for waiting patiently.
That's a tough act to follow. a lot of what Jen says resonates a lot with me, being data driven and thinking about the problems. One thing that I was curious about, with the housing crisis, I think really this idea of trying to look at all the options to increase housing stock is really important. So I'm a little bit troubled by the assumption up front that growth is held static at the 38,000 structures in the last general plan. And I assume some of these alternatives, are sensitive to growth. Some, there's more demand for and less. So it'd be good to have more insights into, what types of different alternatives are going to attract development and actually build housing stock instead of trying to guess that up front.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. A little more data driven. Joel? Joel, did you have any comments? No? Okay. Lee? You're on mute still, Lee.
Actually, that's fine because I don't really have anything else to say from what I've already said, except to once again, thank you guys for convening this tonight's session number 3. It was informative to me, and it elicited some of the thoughts that I share with others, and perhaps some are a little unique in breaking out the green parts of that map. And I want to encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing. Yes, there are things that make it a little tough in a setting like this to please everybody, and I kind of get what Jen and some of the others are talking about, but I think in this setting, and I know a little bit about the behind the scenes work that it takes to get here where you guys are, and I commend you for that, and just stay strong and let's keep moving forward. I won't be here 30 years from now, but I like the process that you're trying to get there. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lee. Appreciate it. Annette, please go ahead.
Thank you. I have a few comments, and I would like to echo what Jen said too, because I feel like you've got a lot of great people on this team who really want to work towards making the best community that we can have, and we aren't getting a lot of chance for input. But aside from that, I'm curious about the transportation issue, because that affects the decisions that we would make here. Like, I like distributed housing, but if there's no transportation out there, that's not really going to be a viable option. Right now, I've heard from several homeless people or unhoused individuals who say they can't live far out because they have no way to get to the services that they need. Mm-hmm. If all of those services are concentrated downtown, then we're going to have a hard time moving those low-end housing to different parts of the neighborhood. Another thought is that if everything is concentrated in downtown and that area gets struck by some disaster, we're going to be in a really poor situation. So by having hubs outside of downtown, it might be a smart thing to do to have a backup redundancy to services. I also wanted to say I wanted to pick equity. On the equity poll, I wanted to pick social justice. That's the most important thing for me in my community, and that was not an option tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Annette, and thank you everybody for your comments. Is there anybody that did not get a chance to speak? We're trying to really focus on encouraging everybody to participate and to, voice their opinion or simply pass. Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's move on.
Noe, can I just add a couple of last minute comments here?
Yes, please.
So I wanted to recognize that we don't have enough time, and I do apologize to address all of your comments this evening, but we will get to them, and there will be additional opportunities to engage with you all. One thing related to the housing number, we wouldn't expect that many units would be developed based on past trends, although we certainly could, as a result of this set of discussions, decide that we wanted to increase that. That 36,000 units is more than what I would anticipate being the city's RHNA allocation over the next few cycles through 2050. So just to keep that bit in perspective. And again, these really just are meant to be a starting off point for a discussion. So of course, there's opportunity to move things around. And so, this excited input that you all are providing, it's not adversarial to us. We appreciate it. We want to hear, what makes you excited and passionate about making Santa Rosa what you want to see in the future. And then one other thing is that if you click on the link that was shared as part of the agenda for tonight's meeting, it'll take you to the project website where we have the slides for tonight, or I'm sorry, the alternatives workbook. Right below that is a link to a set of technical appendices, and that will go into more detail on the specific research that went into coming into this really brief graphic workbook. So for those of you looking for more information, I encourage you to check that out.
Great. Thank you for that, Andrea. All right, so let's get right to it, to the last bit of our last piece, last section is the community engagement event set. Dan, if you want to take it over, please.
Thanks, Noe, and great feedback tonight. Again, this is sort of the dayline is alternatives, and we're still making some adjustments, and how we articulate things in the workbook is going to be really key. I do want to mention here just briefly in the next few minutes about this upcoming engagement event set, but really how we want to get all of you hopefully involved in this event set as well, and really weigh in on these different alternatives and different options. And as part of any engagement event set, this is partly an educational opportunity on just what are these challenges and opportunities and options facing the community, and having similar robust discussions on what is the best path forward for Santa Rosa. So here are just some goals of this next engagement event set. We want to reach the full community and really reach out specifically and targeted to the equity priority communities. As we discussed earlier, have a range of in-person and virtual events. So we're moving towards the ability, hopefully, to have some in-person socially distanced event. It's going to be dependent on COVID protocols, but we're hoping to be able to do that as part of this engagement event set, which we were not able to do last time. And also have some flexibility in this on having quick discussions, if it's pop-up or intercepts, or longer discussions as well. And getting community input and feedback on these alternatives, which one maybe reflects their vision the best, but then what would they refine or enhance out of that as well. Also tied to this, which we're working on with staff, is some key policy choices. And this gets to a lot of the health and equity concerns of the community, because some of them are not necessarily just spatial or number of housing units or mobility. Where the city is going to prioritize infrastructure, for instance, or park upgrades. That's funding or operational in addition to it. So we want to get some of those components added to this engagement event set as well. Ultimately, all of this, we had 3,000 comments or over 3,000 comments the last round. I'm hoping for over 10,000 comments, honestly, this round. A lot of information from the community to help form this preferred alternative that's sort of the next phase of this project. So with that, and Noah, you can just sort of pace through these. There's a range of activities that we're pulling together from the community involvement strategy, a virtual open house, so actually an online portal where people can go in and actually engage with all these materials, ask questions, ask comments, interactive components, so the community can talk to the community actually as part of it, as well as the surveys. We're planning to have 5 hybrid workshops as part of this. And by hybrid, I mean in person, but also streaming online as well. 2 in English, 2 in Spanish, and as Beatriz mentioned earlier, a multilingual workshop. We want to get a variety of languages and folks to help facilitate those as well, and really think creatively, but thoughtfully about the workshops as well. CAC committee members, we had a little bit of discussion last time around workshop toolkits and running workshops. This time we're going to change it up a little bit, and I believe Beatrice had this in the email to everyone. We would like to have one-on-one discussions with each CAC member in January to present the toolkit, but then actually train you how to use it, give you the materials you need, see if you need staff support. You are all liaisons and tremendous connectors with the community, so we really are hoping to get you involved at the level you're comfortable being involved in, reaching out to groups. In addition, we're also going to have some community organization mini workshops. So again, a lot of variety, but trying to reach as many folks as we can. The equity priority community sessions. So this is very intentional, targeted outreach to the communities that Beatrice identified in her presentation, you provide feedback on, but going above and beyond and being very proactive and reaching out and engaging all communities in Santa Rosa. We have a couple youth engagement activities actually already underway right now. You probably see some emails on those. We're going to sort of repost those and get more interest as well, but trying to partner with teachers, local schools, the JC and Sonoma State to get a lot of youth engagement and specific discussions with youth as part of this as well. And then city board and commission meetings, ultimately in planning commission, city council study sessions. So a lot of stuff is coming January, February, March. This is just sort of a preview of that, and obviously more to come as far as discussions on toolkits and training materials. So we're also working to identify some of these sites and locations for the workshops. This is sort of a big list where we're going to narrow it down to those 5, 2 in English, 2 in Spanish, and 1 bilingual. And there's logistical things we're working with right now, where we're trying to reach all neighborhoods as much as we can, and especially equity priority neighborhoods as we do, hopefully in-person engagement here in January. So I mentioned a little bit of sort of the CAC member roles and activities. And again, we're gonna provide you with materials and information on this. So this is just a heads up at this point. But we want you to help us get the word out once we have dates for workshops and other events. Attend these events as well. We want your voice. You know, tonight was kind of a dry run to get some feedback and some understanding how we can tweak this and adjust it. But we want you to participate in these events also, in addition to getting the word out. Hold meetings using the toolkit. As I mentioned, you know, Beatrice and I and others will coordinate on these one-on-one training sessions. We really want to make sure you have the support you need. And if we need to pull in staff or consultant team, you know, we can do that as well. And of course, you know, participating, you are all Santa Rosans, and this is your opportunity to participate even beyond the CAC role. And so just a primer on the CAC toolkit, but we're going to be producing this in digital and physical versions. Again, we're hoping to do physical engagement as long as it's socially distant and meets all COVID protocols. But we're going to be providing each of you a toolkit of materials, a project overview, fact sheet, again, the summary of alternatives, but sort of a even more simplified sort of matrix of evaluating the alternatives. Instructions for doing quick workshops and engaging folks. These are, you know, HOAs you're involved in, organizations, community groups, again, that liaison role as part of the CAC. And then questionnaires that are simple but informative, where people can add in, refine things, put stickers on it, but get a lot of feedback and insights and refinements as well. So we really get a robust amount of feedback as we go through this engagement event set.
Just want to pause very quickly here. Does anybody have any thoughts on the event set that Dan just described? Any feedback? You know, what you would like to other types of events specifically? Okay.
Actually, Noah, if you don't mind pulling up that slide of each of the different event sets, because I went through it pretty quick. I was talking.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Just a couple comments. Number one, do we have a map or like some way to identify all the different neighborhoods in Santa Rosa? And then also, are there the ability to do tactile modeling, like kind of building something with our hands? I think that could really help, not just youth, but all of us. So those 2 questions: maps, neighborhoods, and then also tactile workshops.
Tactile planning workshops, sure. Transforming streets, absolutely. Any other thoughts, suggestions, or comments? Great.
I was just curious what the stickers were.
Well, that is the tactile piece. Okay. So to Kevin's point, and we're refining it and sort of creating it. One of the ideas with the stickers, the 2 key questions we talked about this evening is, which alternative is the closest to your vision for the future of Santa Rosa? You know, assuming none of the 3 maybe are perfect, but there's probably one that's closer than the other 2. Any participant would get that alternative, but the sticker is your ability to change it and modify it. So what would you change about it to make it more closely resemble your vision for the future? And that could be deleting stuff, adding stuff. So it is tactile. The reason for the stickers is one of the issues with COVID is we need to make sure everyone participating has their own physical materials, and it's hard to share and not safe to share. And the stickers, well, literally stick to the pages. So as we're collecting these materials, we're not losing chips or Legos or other things as well. So we're trying to think through how we can keep it tactile, like Kevin mentioned, but also just logistically work with COVID and some of the parameters we're working with.
Right. The safety and protocol issues are really key at this moment. So part of that is going to be, to be determined. All right. Any other comments?
I have one more question.
Yep.
If tonight it was mentioned that there are plans to upgrade our transit system, but that's not in here anywhere. So if you're looking at option number 3, where things are spread out, people are going to say, well, that's not going to work because we don't have a good transit system. So how do we bring that into the conversation?
Right. Full data is what you're saying. Absolutely. Okay. In terms of just feedback for the list of activities, anything else that we'd like to have included here? All right. So Dan, if you don't mind. Oh, I do have a couple more. Go ahead, Mr. Pedriff.
Well, yes, I thought Annette just expressed I guess what it was I was groping for in my not well composed response to your questions. It was hard to make a choice between the alternatives if you didn't fully understand, like the transportation that would be available or that you would expect to find with each of those alternatives. That would have helped me choose between them.
Sure. So just a broader, more precise level of detail, of context in terms of data, of just information that would help you and really the public. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Let's get into the last bit of section here, the next steps. And all right, Dan or Andrea, do you want to just walk us through here?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Why don't you just animate these? I think they animated an interesting order here. They're sort of organically popping up. So one of the first things we're working on our end is to put together a detailed calendar of engagement events. We want to share it out with the CAC as well. So one, you can see all the different events going on and we'll share out to the community, but also if you have additional meetings, organizations that you're going to be meeting with, you'll be able to add those to this matrix as well. And we can kind of see as a team all the different events that will be taking place. I mentioned we're still putting together and drafting this engagement toolkit. One of the things we talked about, which I think in the discussion tonight, all of you sort of echoed, is we were thinking with staff, and actually some members of staff mentioned this, of putting together an 11x17 almost evaluation matrix, because there's a lot of data behind all of this, quantitative and qualitative as well. It's not just numbers, but also qualitative data as an additional handout or material for the community to understand, okay, these are the unique differences between these approaches. We'll be hosting these training sessions. We may also wrap back around with an additional meeting pretty soon with the CAC as well. So just a heads up, we don't have one scheduled or booked just yet, and we'll work with staff on that, but I think it'd be good to check in pretty soon. Admittedly, it's been a pretty long gap since our last meeting, and that's understood on our end as well. We want to make sure you're fully engaged throughout this process, because as Andy mentioned at the beginning, this is a really big part of the general plan update. This is the alternatives phase, and it's always a really large discussion. There's a lot of things to weigh in on, but it's exciting to go to the community here next month and really begin these discussions on the future of Santa Rosa. So more to come on all of this, but we want to give you a heads up on sort of the key next steps here.
Great. Thank you for that, Dan. Now let's go ahead and wrap up here with any final public comments. Let's see, if you have a comment, then you're from the public, not part of the CAC. Okay, we do. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. Michelle, if you don't mind, you have, if you can please bring up the timer.
Give me just 1 second.
All the way back. Okay, I think I saw a raised hand from Rue. Was it Rue?
Rue, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself, and once you begin, I will start your time.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing the work you're doing. It's critically important to get a broad view of what's needed and desired in the city of Santa Rosa. I would like to add two things, I think, for you to consider. There's a fairly large Asian American community in Santa Rosa, and a suggestion would be looking at populations in the schools, because that's the direction we're headed. There, for example, in the Bellevue district, they have an over 90% Latin American population. So if that's true anywhere else, then it seems like it would be really important to know during the lifespan of the general plan what the population projections will be, not what they are today. And my second point is one of the better ways to access minority populations, or any population for that matter, I think Jim will probably remember this, is through the schools, because people are used to going to the schools and are comfortable going to the schools. And so if the schools would be willing to host outreach efforts in timeframes when working people can be there, that's a great, easy, neighborhood focused way to get into those populations. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you for that comment, Rue. Any other comments from the public? See, I see Josephine Borgeson, raised hand. Go ahead, Josephine. You have 3 minutes.
I have much to say, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities to say it. But one issue in terms of access is that closed captioning on these webinars would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments, Josephine? That was it. Okay, thank you for that. Other comments, please raise your hand from the public.
So that is all of our public comment for this evening.
Great, thank you for that. All right, so with that, we're a little bit over at 8:08. I want to, yep.
Would you mind giving just a second? I heard a lot of community members who would like to talk more about this conversation and who feel that we had a limited time for the conversation that we had. So I just wanted to offer, if you want us to host another CAC meeting before going out to the community outreach, and if this is something that you would like to have, we can certainly do that again, because I think that would probably benefit this conversation. Okay. Sorry, no, I know we're a little over time, but I just wanted to bring that opportunity to the group.
No, fair enough. I think that's a good one. It looks like there is a positive response. Anybody, I assume, I saw a couple of hands up here, so thumbs up. So thank you so much for that. Actually, I was going to say, pass it back to you, Beatriz, or Amy, to kind of wrap us up here and close the meeting. Any final comments?
Well, our final comments were going to be that we had a deadline for the comments, which was December the 22nd, which we can still leave there for people who don't want to have an additional meeting. And if you want to prefer to send your comments to us, that's totally fine. My proposal was to meet again before we do this community outreach. And we were talking earlier, Amy Lyle and me, to see if we could host this on January the 12th. So if this is something that you're interested, we can certainly make that happen. And we would just like to know if there's anyone who thinks we shouldn't host this meeting. And if you think we shouldn't host it, we can consider and see, because this is a decision from the whole group. And we just want to open that opportunity for the group and for the community outreach discussion.
And I will say we will do a quorum check too, to make sure that that date would work for people. And if not, we can provide some different options. But we can continue the conversation on alternatives and then have a more focused discussion on the engagement and the outreach that we'd like help with. And then we also still plan on meeting with people individually or small groups to go through all the toolkit pieces that Dan mentioned as well.
Beatrice and Amy, I appreciate you wanting to schedule another meeting. The 12th, January 12th is a charter review committee meeting. at the exact same time. So that might not be the best day. Some of us do both. And also this is a public thing that we want public eyes on. And I would really encourage, I'm going to stop talking now. I swear, if you go to law school and they just tell you to just keep talking until someone knocks you down, for us to meet on just a standing like monthly basis. Otherwise it doesn't feel like we can actually be impactful, and that's not a fantastic use of time. And so that is just my request, my humble request.
Thank you for that. So the discussion is a date. I think we can do this offline at this point if that date does not work. I think the other suggestion was to go ahead and do this on a monthly basis, which I think also is a good idea to continue, collaborating and talking with this group. But that said, I do want to respect everybody's time. It is about 15 minutes past our deadline here, and want to just encourage us to continue this discussion offline and set up some dates and set up some monthly. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody have a strong opinion to not meet monthly at this point? Right. So let's go ahead and I think begin working on that, staff, if that would work. With that, Amy, I will give you the last word here, if you don't mind closing us up and giving us the final word.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noe, and for the consultant team. Just wanted to say thank you all for your time tonight, and we will be in touch soon with more information and more dates.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody has a great holiday season and hope you all stay dry. Have a good one.
Thanks all of you.
Thanks, friends.
Thanks, Noe.